I apologize for the traffic noises, but I'm right underneath a highway. I'm on an underpass. But I thought I would show you guys the road cut I am collecting at today. I'm in the Ottawa area for work, and this is just, I have some time after work, so I thought I'd pop down to this area because it's quite close by. And this road cut, for those who recognize this from the Ottawa area, this is the Scheel Drive road cut. And the Scheel Drive road cut is known for having some nice calcites. And you can actually kind of see right there, that is a calcite seam, and then in there's a bunch of calcite pockets. Looks like that probably came out this winter time due to like just freezing and thawing. And I kind of dug around in some of the stuff, and I've already found some calcites and stuff. I found this little floater in a tailings pile. It's a little weathered, but it's still nice enough. It's a nice sized calcite crystal, and it's got just just a bit of damage on the bottom where it was probably attached to the matrix, but still a nice little cluster. And then I was just looking through the collapsed stuff, and there's some nice little plates. Some of it's a bit weathered, but still got some nice yellow. So, well, the camera's not picking up this one as nicely. And then there's some bigger stuff, like this guy. It's got calcites on the back, and it's got pockets of calcites. I think that I might take this guy home if I don't find any other bigger pieces with this quality, because I think this will clean up nicely. And it's hard to tell some of these pieces. Like this piece doesn't look like much from far away, but then when you look in there in the sandy bits, there's calcite, but I don't know how. I'm guessing it's probably going to be pretty weathered by the looks of it. It looks pretty crummy, but who knows. But yeah, it looks like there's a couple spots along here where some stuff has weathered out. So I'm just going to check out those spots first, and I'll get back to you guys. If I see anything else cool, I'll definitely share it with you. Because right now I feel like I'm a kid in a candy store collecting cool calcite. I am on the other side, and I was just exploring, and I found this this crevice. And obviously people have been digging out, and a few of these I found kind of just in the tailings piles. But I'm an extra tall person with extra lanky arms, so I reached in there farther and I pulled this lovely lump of calcite out of there. It's got a couple breaks, fractures, but it's still quite cool. But then there were also some really interesting, so you can see that there's some dogtooth, like classic dogtooth habit calcite. But then there are some of these are more, how would I describe it? Like fish scale calcite, I think they sometimes call it. Here, this guy's got a good example. You can see kind of like that three-pointed flat kind of thing, or some of them are called Mercedes-Benz calcites, because some of them will have, in some cases, this calcite formation has had pyrite in it. I think that's from China. But anyways, so here I have a calcite specimen that has two different calcite crystal habits. Same with that small guy beside it. You can see the dog tooth in the middle, and then around it a second growth of calcites in that more flat pancake shaped calcite crystal, which is really cool. And that came from all the way back in there. I just reached in farther and there was a bit more loose stuff, so I just kept on pulling stuff out, and these are some of the wonderful little yellow orangish calcites that I pulled out of there. I'm going to keep doing that because this seems the most successful so far. Here's another calcite plate that I think I'm going to be taking home. It's got some very small calcites which grew over the larger ones, and it seems like some of these veins have had sulfides in them, iron sulfides probably, or some kind of iron mineral in there. And some of them, the iron oxidation, the rust, has actually got it into the crystals. like the tiny ones have kind of rust trapped in them by the looks of it. So it's an interesting little just plate. It's ugly, but I kind of like my ugly, wonky looking calcites or crystals, because those always have more character, or at least I believe so. So I'm looking around more. I was digging around in a pile, and out popped this giant cleaved chunker of a partial lumpy calcite crystal. You can see the actual crystal face there, the not so well formed, but and then there's some like smaller ones on there. You can see where it was in contact on the side. You can see the cleavages. Yeah. So it's an interesting piece, so I think I'm going to take it home just to, you know, keep it as a interesting chunk of calcite. Then I found a couple dogtooths, loose, larger dogtooth crystals. And I found a smaller pocket of those weird flat calcite crystals, kind of like those fish scaly, pancakey calcite crystals. So I'm gonna try and see if I can get a plate out of the pocket. So I'm gonna try and see if I can get a plate out of the pocket, and I'll show you guys if I do. I've got a pretty beaten up pocket of calcite that I've kind of just been slowly breaking my way through. A lot of it is pretty busted up already, though I managed to extract some interesting iron staining and inclusions by the looks of it. But these are the kind of the weirdly shaped calcites, the more pancakey calcites that I was talking about. And some of them have some lovely staining on them, so, or inclusions. I think they might be inclusions, but I can't tell for sure. I've just been slowly pulling pieces out, and I've been wiggling this piece for like the last 5 minutes, and I think it's finally loose, so I'm gonna pull it out on camera. Shame that it has a bit of damage on the bit. It's got a bit of a fracture there too, but not bad. One more to the pile. Managed to pull this plate off too. You get on camera, it's pretty dirty, so you gotta wash it off to see if it's any good, but hopefully it is. But I got that whole top plate still, and that's pretty solid, so I'm hoping that maybe if I undercut a lot of this and get a lot of this loose material out, I'll be able to take a sizable plate off the top. Got a lot more, and I managed to get this guy. Nice matrix piece. Hopefully he cleans up nicely. But you can see those kind of pancake shaped calcites, which is pretty cool. I'm gonna clean these up, and I'll show you a couple of the ones that I quickly washed off. So here they are, quickly cleaned off. Some of these turned out really well. This one's lovely. It's got some iron staining, and you can see, I showed before in the video, this one also has a dogtooth crystal. So it seems like the dogtooth came first, and then the secondary growth of these kind of like and Mercedes shaped fish scale-esque. And the funny thing is, I think some of these actually do have some type of inclusions. Let's see, where's the piece that here, this piece. You can see on this cleave side, you can actually see the separate phases of crystal growth of the crystal. And on each of the separate faces, you can see on the outer edge, sorry that my hand is shaking so much, there are these black little spots, these black little inclusions, right where it like phantoms basically, but those are just the stages of growth of the crystals. Careful not to damage them while we drop them. Here's that one plate. It's okay. Might be a bit weather worn, but I'm still gonna take it home. And here's that Nice pocket. It's nice and dark. I think the inclusions might be pyrite. That would be my guess, or maybe hematite. I'll have to maybe check under a microscope to see. But that's of these finds that I found. I'll get back to you if I have anything else to show you guys.
I've got this kind of like dirt-filled, fractured vein of calcite that I've just been kind of pulling pieces off, and I've been finding some chunks, some nice dog tooth points on them. It might be a bit weathered, but some of them are in pretty good shape, as you can see. Some good stuff. So I'm just kind of pulling in stuff like this, just taking loose little bits, checking them, making sure that the pieces don't have anything interesting on them, and then getting them out of the way if they don't. And you just kind of wiggle loose some of this stuff, just very carefully. You don't really want to use your hammer and chisel as much as possible, because that increases your chances of breaking stuff. So you just use that as a last resort when you don't got anything else you can loosen up. Oh, look, another piece. It's got a bit of some fractures, so I probably won't take that, but as you can see, you just pull it off and you see what you can get. It's getting pretty late, so I thought I'd show you the final couple pieces that I cleaned off. Got some more calcite. This is some of the bigger pieces. This guy I didn't get fully cleaned off, but he's probably kind of a not so nice piece, but I'm interested to give him a better spray down at home, so you know, it'll be taking the trip back home with me, because this side looks interesting enough to me, and the preliminary clean seems to indicate it's not too bad on this face, so I'll take it home and give it a better clean, and you know, we'll see after that. Here we have some of my Scheel Drive finds, some of my more interesting calcite finds. There is a mix of both dogtooth and then the more flat tabular calcite crystals that I found. I got lucky and I busted into a pocket with some nice smoky gray tabular crystals. And then also I got some interesting combinations having two of the crystal habits, so the dogtooth and the tabular kind of crystal habit. Let's just start on the left. There we go. It's focused. You can see this one. There's some very druzy kind of crystals, and there's this really nice pocket of smoky gray tabular crystals. I suspect, I'll have to look later on. I don't have time to look right now, but I suspect the gray comes from inclusions of either maybe pyrite or maybe hematite, because there is in other pockets there is some type of like almost iridescent kind of iron staining that occurs in some of the pockets, but this is just a lovely crystal plate that I managed to pull out from the same pocket. I pulled out this plate of crystals as well. It's got some bruising, but nothing a little Q-tip with a diluted acid can't kind of rub out. It's a trick that you can do if you want to kind of get rid of the bruising on some of your crystals. Like, for example, this tip right here is a bit bruised, and same with this tip. These are like almost like flat, kind of clustered together dogtooths, and so you get this really flatter dogtoothy crystal shape, but it's still a lovely little plate. But you use a bit of acid on a Q-tip, just a low concentration one, and you just quickly rub over it, and then you take another Q-tip with a bit of baking soda and just rub over the same spot, and then just dunk your specimen in a bit of water to wash everything off, to make sure that there's no acid or baking soda on there. And then you got a crystal that doesn't have bruising anymore. This is a nice, lovely small plate of dog tooths. Some great color on them, and they're not too weathered. That's the one issue with some of the material at Scheel Drive. Some of the pockets have been cracked open all the way to the top, so they get weathered and they get like inclusions in the actual, because of the weathering. It seems like there's almost like a dusty inclusion or layer that occurs. This one you can see is a bit of a more weathered example of a dog tooth crystal. I was talking about there being some specimens that had 2 crystal habits. You can see here, this is one of those. There's this giant pocket that people who've been to Scheel Drive know which pocket I'm talking about. It produces some specimens with like nice hematite staining that in some cases is iridescent. And it's been basically cleared out, but you know, I'm a tall, lanky guy, and I've got a pretty good reach. So I kind of just stuck my head and arm into that hole, even though some people have been saying they fear that hole or going close to that hole. And I get it. You know, it's a rock hole on a fractured road cut, so you don't know if it's going to collapse on you. And I reached in there and I pulled out a couple specimens that were loose in the dirt way at the back of the pocket. And this was one of those specimens with a really nice double combination of, first the dog tooth came in, and then later there was a secondary growth of the more flat tabular calcites. But you can see that they grew stacked on top of each other, so you get this really stepped look. And sometimes they kind of flatten out, and so you've got your dog tooth crystal there, but then you've got your tabular, and you can actually see on this one right there, you got that iridescent hematite finish to it, which is cool. These still need to have a good actual clean. This comes out of the same pocket. It's just a dog tooth crystal, but I took it because it has that iridescent sheen, because unfortunately both the tip and the base where it came off of something are damaged. But it's got that lovely hematite iridescent sheen inclusions. Now here's a lovely little cluster of dogtooth calcite that I pulled out of a pretty heavily weathered and eroded pocket. It was just kind of sitting there in the dirt, and it's a bit weathered, but the center crystal and the side crystals are still quite nice to look at, so it's still a nice little appealing little specimen. I'll make a great little thumbnail specimen. So these smoky gray flat tabular calcites, these come out of the same kind of pocket that I was working on with the 2 guys in the back that I showed already. That's probably the pocket I had the most success in. At the front of the pocket, there was a bunch of these more weathered. Some of them are actually pretty heavily hematite stained. You can see this one. This one also actually has a dogtooth crystal, if you see right there. So it had a similar thing happen to the large pocket I pulled these 3 guys out of. But this one has like really, really dark red hematite staining, and then really, really dark silvery kind of either black coating or very thin subsurface staining. It's hard to tell with some of these specimens. But same with this guy from the same pocket, smoky gray tabular crystals. You can actually see here that there's actually there was a bit of the smoky gray that came in the first crystal growth, and then the second crystal growth, and then the final crystal growth. You can see there's a bunch of it right just along the surface, so that's kind of a good indicator that it's in there. Last but not least, I have this large cluster of kind of the stacked tabular crystals. Unfortunately, when I pulled it out, it was a bit damaged, and so this back part kind of fell off. But I can still display this in a way where it looks pretty awesome. It has some bruising, you know. I'll have to use a bit of acid maybe to rub off that bruising, but this is a nice lovely cluster. This came out of that big hole with the kind of iridescent hematite pieces. This was just a loose cluster I could feel way at the back of the hole. Probably got loose recently, actually. Some of the there's some other damage on there that looks pretty recent, but it's still very nice. It's very lumpy, kind of almost flowery is what it kind of looks like to be. And yeah, you can just kind of see, like, as the light shines off it, it's just a bunch of those tabular crystals stacked up on each other, kind of like cathedrals. It's kind of how I've heard it explained to me sometimes. But incidentally, these are the same type of calcite crystals you see come out of like China that they call either fish scale, or some of them have these pyrite inclusions that happen. You can see on these crystals, there's kind of the three faces, and where the three faces intersect, like the edges, there's pyrite inclusions in some of the specimens that come out of China, and they call those Mercedes-Benz calcites because it looks like the Mercedes-Benz logo. Just kind of interesting. Maybe I'll try and find a picture and throw up a picture of the calcite I'm talking about. But yeah, lovely specimens. I was quite happy. People told me Scheel Drive is kind of picked over, and I mean, yeah, it kind of was, but I still had a good experience, and I still found some pieces that I'm more than willing to put in my display case. So I think that's good enough for me. And hey, I might even go back. I had a lot of fun. Even though there was a lot of just weathered stuff, I still enjoyed kind of going through the veins, trying to see if I could pull out a half-decent piece, you know? So, I had fun, and that's all that matters. We have gotten to the end of the video. I want to thank you guys for watching. If you like this type of stuff, I also do arrowhead hunting, flint napping, lapidary, and fossil hunting related videos. So, if those if those are things you enjoy, please consider dropping a like and subscribing if you haven't already. Thank you guys for watching and supporting. Please, in the description below, let me know what was your favorite. And I will see you guys in the next video. Have a good day, and thanks for watching.